Today's going to be a balance. We're going to look at balance, and it's that time of year between summer. We're still in that point between summer and autumn, but also kind of like also coming up to that point between midpoint between summer, so the summer solstice and the winter solstice. So we're kind of like close to the autumn equinox. So a lot of change. A lot of change in the world as well. If you turn on the news, it's changed there. Change with kind of like from that summer feeling to winter feeling, wherever you kind of like feel about that. And we're constantly changing too. So today's going to be about some of that navigating the change inside up here, which is where we perceive the change, but also balance in the body as well. Because like, you know, it'd be kind of funny if we just sat here all day complaining about the booking system. I could do that though. Let's start off by getting some breathing going. And one of the balancing breaths that are used in yoga is alternate nostril breathing. Sun breath, moon breath. Never ask me which hand is which, because like it's all been ruined for me from teaching and mirroring and all this. So we'll just start off with your left hand. Left hand. I'm not even going to mirror this. Then take your thumb and cover the nostril that's kind of like seems appropriate for your left hand. So it's not like going to be like this. Cover the nostril. You're going to take a deep breath in through that nostril. You're going to hold the breath. And then you're going to move the thumb and exhale out that side. Then you're going to cover the thumb up again, opening up the other side. Big breath in. Hold the breath. Thumb comes up, exhale. Let's do a few of these alternate nostril breathing, covering the nose with the thumb on the inhale. Pinching the nose to hold the breath in. And exhale through the thumb side. In order to make this kind of like work for you, I'm not going to count. I'm not going to give a count. I'm even not going to do it so that you can figure out which one, what sort of pattern works best for you. This is quite a decongesting breath, because when you breathe out, you're breathing out a slight amount of nitric oxide that's made in the blood when you hold your breath. That's a vasodilator. It dilates the sort of mucous membranes. Yeah, I'm even feeling on one side already. So it's a side you exhale generally gets the benefit of that. As you're doing this, breathing in, lifting the front of the chest up just a little bit. Dropping the shoulder blades down a little bit. Stop once you've done that exhale. Find the other side. Let's do the other side. So again, thumb over the nose, inhale the other side. This side might feel kind of like quite nice and open now. For me, that's pretty open. Hold the breath. And exhale through the other side. Keep on repeating that pattern, your own speed, your own breath hold. No, there's no rush for any of it. Make that the last one. Have a bit of a sniff because it does that to you. That's again that kind of nitric oxide vasodilating stuff that's happening. It's kind of good for shifting that kind of stuff. It's quite a natural decongestant in that respect. balance, physical balance. We tend to kind of think of balance mostly when we lose it. We'll trip, fall, go down a step and there's an extra step, or there isn't that step that we're expecting, those kind of things. One of the things it seems that kind of like yoga helps us with balance is finding that center point, because once we find that center line point, we're going to do this seated to begin with, that center line point where we don't need to kind of use too much power to hold ourselves up. When we kind of like stand up, we can like do the same thing, because if we're like off balance, and it's kind of funny that we can become off balance, use a lot of compensation muscles to try and hold us up in that position, but they kind of like can't kick in at a point when we're going to like lose our balance because they're already working. So yoga is kind of good for helping us figure out where's that point in space where we're supposed to be balanced. So let's play with this in a seated position to begin with. Your legs can be whatever position feels comfortable. If they feel like they're getting funny on one side, you can change them across to them and put them on the other side. Start off by finding out whether your hips feel like they're reasonably level on the floor. If they don't, blocks underneath the hips are kind of cool here. This is where kind of like that really comes into play. Notice there's several arcs of motion in your hips. There's the front and back motion on the sit bones. So if we can play with this front and back motion, as you breathe in, you generally find the back of it lifts up and the chest lifts up. And as you breathe out, you tend to go forward anyway. So this is gentle rocking forward, but you can exaggerate it and find that balance in the middle. There's also a left to right. Hips tend to become kind of like a little bit skewed in people because we tend to be stronger on one side. We tend to compensate more on one side, and then things like bad backs or hip pain, knee pain come into play, and we compensate even more. So again, feeling for getting both sit bones in on the ground side to side. In some positions we're going to be in, this is going to be a little bit more tricky, but again, we're trying to get both of them down. Finally, the final sort of range of motion is this twisting motion on the hips. So if we twist the hips from side to side, we can find that there's a position where they feel quite level. And then as kind of yoga teachers are fun to say, you line up the crown of your head over your shoulders and the shoulders over your sit bones. Kind of easier to do, but easier to say than it is to do. But this idea of finding that place where it doesn't take so much effort to do it. Let's take a moment to sort of find that place for us. Maybe closing the eyes, maybe lowering the gaze so that you're taking up that visual sense. Helps for some people, doesn't help for others. And then add the breath into it and notice, what does breath do? Breath tends to move us in and out of that position, but only a little bit. As you inhale, the chest tends to lift up and you tend to arc back a little bit. As you exhale, you tend to come forward a little bit. So again, finding that place that takes the least amount of effort to be in. For balancing, one of the main things we can do is activate the different lines of the body, the front, the back, and the sides of the kind of like, there's also diagonals as well, but like if we think about front, back, two sides, it gives us 4 lines to kind of work with. First thing we're going to do is we're going to do a twist, which actually sort of like works on the kind of like 2 sides in here. So inhale, lift your arms up. Again, you can do this in whatever leg position feels good for you. Find your left hand, put it onto your right knee, and your right hand goes behind you. Now, you've got 2 options here with this arm in the back. You can bring the hand on the floor to give you a little bit of balance and lift the front of the chest up. Or if you want to kind of like work your core a little bit, you can wrap that arm around the back and take hold of your leggings with that spare free hand and see what happens there. Can you maintain your balance here? Can your sit bones be connected to the floor? Can you still feel that subtle lifting of the chest as you breathe in and that subtle rocking forward as you breathe out in this twist? Or is the twist quite rigid? Generally, if you can't feel that little bit of movement in here, you're probably gripping in the twist, and it's a nice idea to sort of see if you can let something go to let you move in and out of that balance point. We're staying here a little bit longer than we usually do so that you get a feeling for this position that you're in. Loosening the jaw, the shoulders, they don't really need to be involved in this too much. Slowly come back to the front. Again, slow movements are kind of cool because they're kind of controlled. They're more controlled than moving fast anyway. So if you feel like you want to change leg positions or change the cross of your legs, this is your time to do so. In which case, we'll do the other one. Inhale, lift the arms up. Right hand, left knee. Left hand either goes behind on the floor or holding you up. And turning to the left here. Or the other side if you kind of like did the other way. Notice with this twist that it probably feels different going one way than the other. Here in the UK, if you're driving, then you're probably more used to kind of like turning to the left because you look behind you when you're reversing unless you use your mirrors. So even the way we twist is sort of very cultural. We twist to look behind us more one way than the other. Again, feeling that gentle rocking back and forth. Keeping it quite loose, keeping it quite gentle. And back to the middle, really slowly. Seated cat-cows. We're going to do these really slowly. So we're going to start off with this idea of watching what the movement is with the breath. Inhale, lift the chest up. Exhale, let the chest come down a little bit. And then we're going to slowly, over a few breaths, exaggerate that into that cat-cow movement. So that inhale, let your belly come out. Lift the chest up, pull your chest forward. On the exhale, pull the belly in. Let the head come forward. So they're very gentle movements. And feeling for moving through, if possible, that center point of balance, because you're always moving through that center point of balance. Usually when we do cat-cow, we're so obsessed with kind of like, the cow and the cat, we tend to forget that middle position that we move through in space. And then bringing both hands onto your right knee, doing a few cat-cows in this. Now, the thing is with this little bit of a twist is that we don't spend all our time in this sort of neutral facing forward position. We're mostly in twists and so on when we move. So being able to move in and out of this center position, finding out where this center point of balance is in this twisted position is useful. Notice here, if in this twist, you tend to lean up off the sit bone on the opposite side. If you do, reduce the twist a little bit. And then come to the other side, slowly feeling for that movement. And then back to the middle. Take some relaxing breaths in and notice whether you're moving into your center of balance at this point. We're going to do some side bends in a second. Yeah, you can't have the recording. Yeah, it's not done. Should be here if you want it. Right. Do seated side bends. Again, you can do these in whatever leg position feels good for you. Straddle can be one, Baddha can be another, cross-legged is another. They'll work out just pretty much the same. Key is sit bones on the floor. There's a thing that happens in some form of yogas, and I've never really sort of mentioned this in class before, where they talk about moving the muscle away from the sit bones and sort of sitting down like that. It's a sort of, I don't know, I think that's a Ashtanga thing. I don't recommend that. And I don't recommend it from a perspective that if you're pulling on the muscles around the sit bones, they're generally your hamstring muscles and your butt muscles. If you put them in tension, lock the muscle, sit down, and then start doing stuff, to me, it seems like a recipe for sort of tearing a muscle at that sit bone. So I don't kind of recommend that, which is why I don't teach that. I was never taught to teach it anyway. But I've seen some people do it in order to get a better feel of the sit bones. I don't think we should be doing that. I think body understands the sit bones better than we need to do it. So feel the sit bones on the ground. Left hand down, right arm reaches up. As that arm reaches up, keep on reaching to the left with this and feel for keeping both sit bones on the floor. Two little tricks for keeping both sit bones on the floor. Number one, you don't reach over so far. Number two, you can press this hand into the floor, which will sort of move your hips a little bit. Now notice here that there's a center of balance in this kind of forward and back place. Because if you're too lean back, you're like pulling yourself forward. If you're too forward, you're pulling yourself back. There's also a balance that you can reach in this side bend. So you're keeping your sit bones down, you're finding that center of balance with your arm up over your head. Let's change that center of balance a little bit. Move just the top arm to this 45-degree position for chest opener. Big breath in, lengthen the arm, exhale, pull that arm back. One thing I've noticed recently, if you feel this more in the shoulder or the elbow, something that you can do is make a fist that locks the elbow and the arm a little bit more, and then take the arm back. I know it doesn't seem very yoga to make a fist, but this works. But still let the head relax to one side, still let the face relax, your jaw relax, your eyes relax. Again, trying to keep both sit bones down. Third arm position, neck release. So, neck release, bring this arm down, 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 until you feel your shoulder let go. If you don't feel your shoulder let go, bring it all the way down and then lift it back up slowly. If you're one of those people with perpetually sort of tight shoulders, that's a good trick. Come out of this, bend underneath the head, lift your head up. If you're in cross-legged, you might want to chunge across the legs over. Going the other way now. Right hand down, left arm reaches up. Keep on reaching that left arm up, 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 up. You reach over to the right. Again, using your sit bones connected to the ground. Maybe this hand here helps you to sort of bring them into play. Second arm position, chest opener again. You can make that fist if that feels like that's like gonna help you a little bit. Third arm position, neck release, bring it down, 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 down. Again, maybe bringing it all the way down and then bringing it back up. And then picking this hand off the floor underneath the head, lift the head up, and then come back to the middle. Your shoulders play an awful lot of work in balancing. They're almost like the biggest structure that you can move up here, apart from your head, but you can't really move your head very far. And if anything, if you feel like you're going to fall and lose your balance, what your brain does is stabilizes the neck at that point. So it's almost like takes the head out of the equation of allowing you to balance. So your shoulders need to be mobile. One of the things I find a lot is that people don't do yoga, their shoulders are quite frozen. Usually in this upright position here, so we're going to do something with the shoulders. So let's take your right hand and put it onto your left shoulder. You can feel, if you can feel the top of your shoulder blade, and notice as you move your shoulder up and down that there's movement in the muscles underneath there. As you take your arm out to the side, there's movement in those muscles too. You can feel along the top of the shoulder blade there is the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, the rotator cuff muscles. And you can sort of feel them as you move that arm around. And see if there's a place that you can get your arm to where those muscles at the top of the shoulder blade sort of relax. Boom. Now here's a little trick. Move that shoulder up, 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 up. You can feel it as you're bringing it up. Bring it up, 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 up. And then slowly bring it down, 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 down. And seeing if you can bring it down a little bit lower. Then bring it back up again. Up, 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 up. And down, 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 down. Let's do a few of these. It's usually when we do shoulder shrugs, it's almost like a big movement. But there's benefit in moving these muscles slowly. For people with stiff necks, stiff shoulders, this is a good exercise Because generally, it's not the big muscles that are involved in making that stiffness, it's the smaller muscles. Because they're usually responsible for a lot of the structural holding that's going on. And if you're feeling clicking or Rice Krispie sounds, that's normal too. And then move over to the other side. Now, because you've had this arm in this position, this side's going, the next side's going to feel a little bit tense. So you're going to need to do a little bit more work in finding that place where you feel like that arm lets go. So have a wiggle of it, bring it out to the side, in, up, down. See if you can get those muscles at the top of the shoulder blade to let go. And then let's bring that shoulder up, 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 as high as you can. And then down, 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 down. I can't bring it too high because I'm knocking my earpiece out. Up, 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 up. And down, 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 down. And then let's do both sides with shoulder shrugs. Again, with these shoulder shrugs, we're going to do them slowly. Reason being, we want to feel into what's going on there. So we're going to take gentle breaths in, bring them up really slow and gentle. So squeeze the top tips of your shoulder blades together, and then exhale, slowly bring them down the back. Gentle breath in. Squeeze the middles of your shoulder blades together. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. And exhale, slowly bring them down the back. Last one, big breath in. Squeeze the bottom tips of your shoulder blades together. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. And exhale. Bring them down the back. Let's do one more each of these. Breath in. Shoulders slowly come up. Shoulders slowly go back. Squeezing the top tips of your shoulder blades together. Exhale, slowly drag them down the back. Breath in again. Squeeze the middles of your shoulder blades together. And exhale, bring them down the back. And last one, breath in. Squeeze the bottom tips of your shoulder blades together. And exhale, bring them down the back. Let's lie down and do some stuff lying down. First off, when you're lying down, get comfortable. Because you really don't want to be uncomfortable. Yeah, take a sip of water as well. There's no sort of... Right. Getting comfortable in lying down. I've talked about this quite a few times over the last few weeks, but we're going to... If your legs are bent, feel for getting the soles of your feet nice and comfy on the floor, then your hips comfy on the floor. The back of your rib cage, shoulders, back of your head. Amazing number of people float their head slightly here. So you want to keep your head as comfortable as possible. If it feels like you can roll your mat over, give yourself a little pillow or put a blanket underneath there too. That works as well too. Because again, we're not that used to lying flat. Even though being flat is a really cool thing to play with because it helps us kind of like stand up straight if we lie down straight. Then let the arms relax, the elbows relax, the wrists relax, and the hands relax. Notice after a couple of breaths, if you feel like you want to shuffle your hips around a little bit or your shoulders around, that's again quite normal when we start to lie down, especially on a harder surface, that different parts of the body tend to kind of release at different times. So it's okay to sort of like feel like you need to readjust or wriggle or make some adjustments in here because it's quite common for different parts of the body to be relaxing. And because the floor isn't that yielding, it actually kind of like gives you that feedback. Whereas if you're lying on a mattress or something, it's holding you up and it's almost like supporting those compensation patterns, which is probably why it's not comfortable to lie on a hard floor for extended periods because, being out of those compensation patterns can be quite stretchy, they become quite stressful. But for short periods of time, This is a really good thing to be doing because it helps you find what is that level, what is that flatness. If you can, and it doesn't like sort of bother your low back too much, you could straighten your legs out. Again, we're only going to do this for a short period of time. So again, that sort of takes the long-term oomph out of it. You know, we're not going to be here for 20 minutes or anything. What I like to do here is I like to push through my heels, straighten out my knees, and feel for extending and opening my hips out. And then relaxing the legs again and noticing what position they come into. Take another breath in, feel for packing that breath down into my feet. Pushing through the heels, straightening out the knees, straightening out the hips. Maybe even feeling like I'm lifting up, like sort of like tilting my pelvis up slightly. And then exhale, let my legs and hips relax. Let's do that a few times. Breath in. And that breath can be gentle, doesn't be huge. Push through the heels again, that can be quite gentle. Feel for straightening the knees out, maybe even tilting the pelvis so that you're tilting it up at the bottom a little bit. Curling your tailbone under and then exhale, letting it settle down. Can you do this while keeping everything else quite stable and quite soft? That's another trick. You might be so focused on straightening your legs out that doing two things at once just doesn't work for you, in which case, focus on pushing through the heels. And then as you relax, focus on the whole body relaxing. If you do have that brain space for pushing through the legs and also letting the upper body be relaxed, then see if you can do both at the same time. And then make that the last one. Find that position of center. If you like having your legs straight out here, keep them straight out for a few breaths, or bring them back in, feet flat on the floor, sort of so that you've got that support, but it's not like so tight in the low back. Pick which one works for you. Stay there for a few more breaths. Finding this balance of lying down balance. Don't usually think that there's a lying down balance, but there is. Let's come into a very slow moving the knees from side to side. So very slow windscreen wipers here. So for these, you're going to need the knees bent, feet on the floor, and you're going to take your knees from one side to the other. If you kind of like chest opener feelings here, then you can bring your arms out to the side, like in a T shape, cross shape. Yeah, if that doesn't work for you, then, maybe just bring your hands onto the belly or just leave them next to you. The thing is with taking the knees from one side to the other is notice that spot as the knees come pointing up towards the ceiling, that there's that point of balance where the muscles on the outside and the inside of the legs don't have to do anything. But then as you swing over to the other side, muscles on the outside of one leg start to switch on and on the inside of the other. And then as you come back up to that center line point where, none of the muscles need to do anything. And then as you come over to the other side, that whole thing changes. The outside of the other leg and the inside of the opposite leg kick in again. So you're moving from one side to the other. If you're somebody that likes to do a little bit more twisting, this isn't I know that twisting isn't like something everybody likes to do here, but if you want to put more twist into this, if you bring your arms up over your shoulders and then bring one hand down onto the opposite elbow and then the opposite hand onto the opposite elbow, and then as you swing your knees over to one side, you take your elbows to the other side, and then come back into the center position with both your knees and your arms, and then over to the other side. Keeping this movement slow, so it might be almost like imperceptible you're doing. It doesn't have to be a huge movement, or it might be that you're getting your knees over all the way to the floor one side and your elbows onto the floor the other side. It doesn't really matter. It's about noticing the muscles that are holding you up and pulling you towards that center point. Noticing when you're in that place of balance that all those muscles sort of go, I don't have to do anything. And then as you go over to the other direction, they're doing something different. Relaxing in this sort of pose, it can be quite tricky because you're doing a lot of stuff, especially if you're focused on doing a lot of stuff. But keeping the movements as small and simple as you need to have them. And then very slowly, once you get into that neutral position, that balanced position, if you got your arms up, bring them down, stop there for a minute and see what's going on. Tiny bridge tilts. I've added the word tiny in here because if you say let's do bridge tilts, but they're not huge, just keep them small, you'll still do big bridges. This one's tiny bridge tilts. Why they call them tiny? Because they really are tiny. If you set your feet up for bridge, so your feet are kind of close to your hips, knees up towards the ceiling, feet roughly parallel. Some people brush the backs of their heels, you kind of know your feet in the right position. Other people, that doesn't work for them. Rest the arms down on the side. Tiny bridge tilts are almost like that beginning of moving into bridge, where there's kind of no sort of almost zero lift off the floor. You're just switching on the legs, switching on your butt muscles, and almost starting to lift the low back up, the hips up off the floor, the low back, and then you let them come back down onto the floor. So let's play with that. Big breath in, send that breath into the feet, press your feet into the floor, start to tilt your tailbone under and curl your hips up off the floor. Start to do that. And then exhale, bring them back down again. So there's just almost no movement at all here. Another breath into the hips. Curl the tailbone under. Start to tilt the tailbone up. Start to curl the hips off the mat and then bring them back down again. Yeah, a few more times, making this again movement as small and as simple as possible. And notice if that tendency to want, I want to do full bridge and all this kind of stuff comes in. And go, no. We're just playing with this balance point. The balance we're playing with here is that switching from a place of activity to a place of not doing something. And notice that shift. What muscles need to be switched on here to start to curl your tailbone up, start to lift your hips up off the floor, and then feel for them going back and relaxing. Or going into a place of inactivity at any rate, maybe not relaxing. Your hips are the primary sort of hinge in the body. And when we're standing up, we'll experiment a little bit more with this later on. But it's especially important in that forward and back balance in the body that we play with. Here we're just switching on those muscles, almost doing a very gentle ab exercise. It is a very gentle ab exercise here. I don't want to do too much abs today because, again, doing too much abs sort of switches on the front of the body and makes that area too tight. And if you're playing with balance, that's not necessarily what you're looking for. Make that the last one you want to do for right now. Last thing we're going to do is we're going to play with getting the shoulder blades up off the floor, up and down off the floor. We talked about a lot of up and down movements in the shoulder blades, and there's also a back and forth movement in the shoulder blades. So if you bring your left hand and bring it up so that it's up above your shoulder, so your fingers are pointing up towards the ceiling, thumb pointing up towards your head. Notice that if that arm is straight, if you carry on pushing that arm, that shoulder blade will lift up off the floor, maybe quarter of an inch, maybe half an inch, maybe a whole inch, depending on kind of like how much movement you've got on your shoulders. And then as you can bring that shoulder blade back down, still keeping the arm straight. So you've got that movement in the shoulder blade. And we're going to play with that. On an inhale, we're going to lengthen the arm up, lift the shoulder blade up off the mat. Exhale, bring the shoulder blade back down. Now lengthen that arm, lift the shoulder blade up, keep the back of the head, keep the ribs down, keep the hips down, keep the feet down. Exhale, bring that shoulder blade down. So we're just working on that protraction and retraction of the shoulder blade. And we're just doing one side at a time because that gives us a better feedback. So how much is that moving? The other thing to look out for here is how stable does the shoulder feel when you've got that elbow lift, when you've got that shoulder blade lifted up off the mat, and how stable does it feel when you bring it back down onto the mat? If you feel like there's instability, the arm starts to wobble in there, feel for reaching through the fingers more, like you're reaching for something. That'll activate a few more muscles in there and help stabilize the arm. So imagine you're reaching for an apple or the remote control or something above your head or changing a light bulb or something. It's that idea that instead of just abstractly moving this body part, we're actually thinking we're doing something with it. That activates an awful lot more neurons in the brain. Swap over. Let's do the other one. So bring the arm up overhead. Fingers pointing up towards the ceiling, thumb pointing away from you. Inhale, lift that arm up. So lifting the shoulder blade up. Exhale, bring it back down. See if you can keep the elbows straight as possible. And if you're getting that movement in, again, different side, going to feel different, going to have different ranges of movement, going to behave differently, going to have different levels of stability. That's how we're built. And then bring that arm down. Last thing we're going to do lying down, for now anyway, last thing we're going to do is notice what level of tightness there is in the chest muscles. Now, easy way to do this is that if you lie with your hands down, lie with your hands next to your hips, palms facing up. Now, if you can't get your palms facing up when your hands are near to your hips, that's kind of okay. Outward rotation doesn't always work for everybody. Definitely doesn't work for me. But then keeping the backs of your hands on the floor, slowly sweep your arms along the floor. And you might find that you start to get tension when the arms are about 20 degrees, 30 degrees, 40 degrees. You might be able to bring them close to being level. Some people can bring them all the way level. Find that spot where you feel like they can be comfortable there for a few breaths and stay there for a few breaths. Now, maybe that's with them down by their hips. That's fine too. Depending on how tight your elbows and how tight your biceps and how tight your chest muscles are, yeah, that's okay. You might be getting a stretch there. Other people might going to be able to bring them out to the side completely. Palms up, chest open, shoulders down, and whatever position feels good. Stay there for a few breaths. Again, we talk a lot about having rounded shoulders now because of people talk about like it's because of phones, and 20 years, 30 years ago, they were saying it's because people are reading newspapers and books and all this kind of stuff. We tend to have rounded shoulders anyway because we're load-carrying creatures and our arms are at the front. It's kind of like just how we are. I don't necessarily think phones or reading or anything's done that. But having this ability to open those muscles out a little bit, like this, does help our balance, does help our kind of breathing, and does help the kind of like to stand in a better way. So find that place, take a few breaths, let the shoulders relax, let the chest muscles relax, and don't feel like you need to go to a place where it's uncomfortable. If it's uncomfortable, your body's going to fire off all sorts of alarm bells. It doesn't like this position, and what it does then is it tightens up and tenses up. So make sure it's a comfortable place to be. Hey, a couple of last minute breaths here. A few more opportunities to sort of go, bring your arms into the side. Slowly roll over onto your favorite side. And slowly come and sit up. And back to that point of balance again before we stand up. If anybody was ever a fan of like Bruce Lee films in the 80s, he used to talk about that 1-inch punch thing. This is what he was talking about. This movement in here. This movement here. It's really odd here. People who do yoga tend to be quite good at this because we tend to do quite a lot of pushing. But you go and ask somebody, just pick somebody who doesn't do yoga and generally ask them about this, and you'll find that the shoulder tends to be quite frozen in there, and there's issues once the shoulder doesn't want to move. It's a bit chilly, isn't it? We'll put the heating on, it's always too chilly. I think so, anyway. Anyway, we're going to stand up now anyway, so that'll kind of like warm us up a bit more. So let's stand up. Yeah, do you want to put it on? Do you know how to do it? This is where I want to. Do you know how to get there? Well, just press all buttons then. I think that's the key. Oh, is it open? Oh, unless you need a key. Wearing a 2-minute, put the heating on here. Feeling for what it feels like to stand up after being sitting down for so long. Feels really kind of weird, probably. Yeah, like whoa. Yeah. Oh, we're gonna stand up now. Yeah. So just have a few minutes of standing up. Do you want me to bring a chair over for you there to make it a bit easier for you to get up? That's okay. We're gonna need maybe chairs in a second anyway.
training and I take deep breaths.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
It's crazy.
I still have that as well. Like, you know, like the other day, like I was doing something. I was, yeah. Have you noticed? Athletes generally yawn though. Have you noticed them like when, especially like they'll do this as well and yawn. They're taking more oxygen in. Yeah.
Give me 7 minutes. One exercise I'm yawning.
Well, we're going to be yawning in a minute. So just standing up and noticing what does it feel like to stand up? This point of balance. I always think yawning is really good though. People don't want to do that when they're training. People don't want to do that when they're training. People also don't want to look like they're sweating and they don't want to look like they're breathing too much. It's like really weird. That's what you're there for, you know, like you're there to do stuff and breathe. Yeah. Does everybody else start yawning in the gym when you yawn? I don't care either. Is that on now? All about. Did you get a jackpot? Did like money pour out of the boiler? Like more lights came on. Well, it's gonna be a party here in a bit anyway, so they're gonna want it. So feeling this movement of switching from one foot to the other, noticing as you switch over from one foot to the other, what is moving? God, there's a lot of stuff moving. Pretty much everything is moving. And then maybe even making this movement, if it feels comfortable, good enough that you're coming up onto the toes of one foot and then onto the toes of the other foot. You can close your eyes with this, only if you feel safe. Proprioception, balance uses the sight a lot. But if we can take that out, we're bringing that senses into the body a little bit more. So what we're going to do now, we're going to focus on balance, and we're going to do it differently to how especially how you're taught to do in yoga. It frustrated me in yoga that when I was taught to teach yoga, it was almost like teaching things to people who could already do things. Like, you know, like people tend to come into yoga great at everything, and like especially when they're in training, everybody's great at everything. If you suck at it, like somebody did, you're like, well, how do I kind of break these movements down so that people who like me suck at doing this can actually learn to do them? Because like it's great, like let's do a kind of a, you know, this pose or that pose. Okay, cool, but how do you do that and how do you build up to it? So this is kind of like what I do with yoga. I break it down so that we can kind of like do stuff. And if you can't do the whole thing, then what can you do to kind of get up to being able maybe to do the whole thing? But it even doesn't matter if you can't do the whole thing, because it doesn't matter. The whole point is that you're strengthening muscles, you're improving balance, you're getting fitter, or whatever those goals is, as you're trying to kind of like do something. It doesn't really matter if you can never do a half moon, because like if you can still strengthen those muscles, then that's what counts, or you improve balance or whatever. So today we're going to play with these things, and we're going to break it down. We're going to take it slow, and we're going to kind of like be feeling into the body, and balance is going to be the key. That's what we're going to kind of be playing. So let's start off standing at the front of the mat. Key to balance. Yoga teachers talk about this a lot, and it actually is something that's really important. This lifting and spreading the toes, we talk about this an awful lot. The reason we do it is because there's a lot of muscles pulling up on the kneecap. Think about all these muscles. You got the front of your leg, but you don't have an awful lot pulling down on it. That muscle, the front of your shin, does pull down on it. By lifting up the toes gently, not like full on, like the Hulk would. Just like 20% lift in there, just like an awareness of lifting the toes up. The toes don't even need to lift up off the mat. It's almost this idea of stretching the foot. And that's enough. You'll feel your knees sort of switch on. There'll be a little bit of like in the knees as you lift and spread your toes. Warrior one. Let's step the left leg back. Now, again, this is where things get complicated. Some people want to be over here and some people want, over here. Step it far back as feels comfortable. Again, if it's too far back, you're going to be wobbly and like it's not going to work for you. Get a place of feeling like you're stable. Now, it might be here. That's okay. It might be all the way over here. That's okay. But you want to be stable. You want to be strong. You want to feel like you're doing it. Next thing is lifting the arms up. This is where people get it kind of like confused. Tell people lift your arms up. Yoga teachers go, lift your arms up. People go like this. And then they say, drop your shoulders down. You can't. If you lift your arms up like this, you can't drop your shoulders down. Easy way to lift the arms up and be able to drop the shoulders down is to spiral the arms up. So imagine you're taking your thumbs from pointing towards your hips and you're pointing the thumbs away from you. So thumbs start up at the hip, pointing towards your hips, thumbs point away from you behind you. That then gives you mobility in the shoulders. Notice you can bring them up, you can bring them down. So we're in a warrior one. We've spiraled our arms up. We're sinking the hips down. We're going to spend a few breaths in it. Feel for getting that center point of balance. You're not wobbling from side to side. You're not wobbling back and forth. And then bring your arms back down. Step to the front of the mat. Boing, boing. Come back to that point of balance. Weird thing. Step the other leg back. Boom. Spiral the arms up. Find that center point of balance. No, this is going to feel weirdly different because that's just how we are. We're different. And bring the arms down and step to the front. Mountain pose. One of the ones that yoga teachers talk a lot about. What does mountain pose look like? Sort of like ground through your heels, through your balls of your feet, lift the toes up. And the palms, this is where it gets complicated. Yoga, generally palms turn outwards. For a lot of people, that sucks. For me, it feels like it sucks. But it's actually quite a good movement. And it helps sometimes to feel for lifting the shoulders up, squeezing the shoulder blades together, and then letting the shoulder blades come back down, because that puts it in a position where you can outwardly rotate your upper arm a little bit better. I generally don't worry about this position in mountain pose because it's quite complicated, but if you wanted to do it, that opens up the front of the body. And you might feel it's a bit easier because we've done chest openers standing and a chest opener on the floor. Your chest feels a little bit more open to do this stuff. So from there again, warrior one, left leg goes back. Spiral the arms up. Feel for that balance point. If it feels good, close the eyes. If it doesn't, keep them open, keep them fixed on something that's not going to move. Then let's do a very gentle warrior one back bend. So the arms come down onto the hips. And basically, this is not like a back bend like you see on Instagram. This is just essentially lifting the front of the chest up a little bit. So you push your arms down into your hips, lengthen through the back, low back, and then lift the chest up. The head can still be forward, so you're looking at something on the horizon. But you gain that benefit of opening the front of the body a little bit. And you're breathing in and out as you're doing this. And bring the arms down. Shift your weight to that front leg. Step to the front. If it feels clumsy, doesn't matter. You can bring that up. But it's a strengthening movement. I'm moving there to there, and we can move to the other side. So come into mountain pose. So shoulders up, shoulders back, shoulders down, palms forward. Then step right leg back. And if you could do that right leg step back slowly, it's even better because slow movements work you more. And they're more like kind of like, thought out. Come into that, spiral the arms up. Bring the arms down, warrior one, back bend, so hands come onto the hips, and the shoulders there. Press into the hips, lift through the low back, lift the chest up. Shift your weight to that front leg, bring that back leg forward, come back into a mountain pose. Again, if you feel like you want the shoulders up, shoulders back, palms turn forward. Relax the shoulders to get your shoulders into that position, palms facing forward. Fine. Warrior 2. Let's play with Warrior 2. We're going to do some movements in Warrior 2. This is where lines on the mat kind of come in handy because you can kind of see what you're doing. Usually I hate the lines on the mat, but lying on the mat this time's kind of cool. You can line your feet up. Lift and spread the toes. Notice how that makes a little bit of an arch in your foot. It also, what lifting and spreading the toes does here, you probably can't see on the camera, is that it stops the foot from rolling out. It pulls the foot in slightly. Because if you're somebody who's prone to twisting their ankle, like somebody might be here in the front, learning to lift and spread your toes is a good thing because it strengthens the stirrup underneath the foot. So, Warrior 2, turn your left toes out. Right toes turn in. Sort of heel to arch sort of thing here for balance. Notice then, turn your chest towards the front. Notice about getting your balance here. If it sucks, you might want to move this foot here to different positions. That's okay. And then let the arms come up. Bring the arms back a little bit so they're in line. Because generally we have our arms here. If you bring them back so they're in line with your feet, with your arches and your toes. Again, closing the eyes feels good. Close the eyes. If it doesn't need to close the eyes, fix on something that's not going to move. Yes, from here to a reverse warrior. So right hand comes down, left hand comes up and over. You can choose how far this other hand goes. This is a reverse warrior. This is a reverse warrior. Some people go a lot further. Key is here to stay balanced. So almost like from that warrior 2 position to reverse warrior, your legs don't really move that much. He says checking that his doesn't move too much on the camera. And break breath in. Exhale back into the warrior 2 position. Let the arms come down. Just do that on the other side. So turn your feet so they're facing forward. We're going to do the other way now. Right toes turn out, left toes turn in. Bend that knee a little bit. Hips and chest, front of the mat. Get that point of stability going. Notice if you got lines in your mat, where's that position? If not, don't worry about it. Alter this foot here if you want that balance, and then arms come up. And then let's play reverse warrior. So left hand comes down, right arm comes up and over. Hips stay pretty much stable throughout this. This is an upper body movement. If your hips move a lot from coming to from warrior 2 to reverse warrior, it generally means that you're kind of out of balance somewhere. Because there isn't that level of strength in your legs to be able to, and over time that'll come from doing this move. Pretty much everybody here is pretty strong. Well, everybody here is actually stronger than I could see. I didn't see any real movement there at all. But if you do yoga, do this movement, your body learns how to do it more efficiently anyway. Big breath in and come back into that warrior 2 position. Let the arms come down. Turn your feet facing forward and heel toe your way to standing. When it comes to balance, the weird thing is that yoga's good for it in one way, but the problem is that we generally, as we're moving through day-to-day life, don't kind of like end up in positions like this or like this. And we definitely don't end up without something in our hands or without something that destabilizes us. So find a block, and we're going to play with this. Now, we're not going to give you like a shopping bag or something here to play with. If you don't have like a block, you could use Crocs or something. Is it off? Maybe it's broken, like last time. I pressed all the buttons last time and it was broken. I didn't break it. Oh, I didn't touch it this time. It's on camera. So, let's start off just in a standing position, blocking in front of us. And then we're just going to move that block from the front to the back to the front, and back, going the other way to the front. Generally, pretty straightforward. And it's kind of easy, this, because in some ways your shoulders are quite flexible, because this is quite an easy point to stand with. But let's play with this in Warrior One. Let's stand at the front of the mat. We'll wait a second here, because let's start off with, let's do it again. Stand at the front of the mat and pass the block back and forth. Now, even when you're thinking about going into a Warrior One, you might start to notice that this position becomes a little bit tricky because your core is starting to switch on. I'm finding it just like when thinking about it, like, wow, that's a lot harder. Why is that a lot harder? Because I'm thinking about doing a different pose. If you want to be really smart here, you can take this arm up in like an eagle arms position, swap the block this way. I can't really do that, but I don't even know what a blooming block is, but like some people can do that really well. If you want to do that in a safer way to play with that is that you can use a belt for doing that. So you're moving the belt back and forth like this. It's really interesting. You can ask people who do full archer arms to do this here, and they're like, all of a sudden, they can't like do something. They can do archer, but they can't do that. It's sort of really interesting. You got a jackpot this time, Lisa? Oh, weird, isn't it? Maybe. Yeah, they're full on as well. So are we finding this taking the block and just trying to do this, pass it from one hand to the other? Oh, I managed it. Oh, no, I didn't. Okay, let's do something different. This is just standing. This is just standing. Let's come into a Warrior One with the left leg back. So same thing as before, step the left leg back, sink your hips down. First thing we're going to do is just move this block around the body. Did somebody say it's all going to go wrong? Hey, I'm the only one on camera here, so we're just going back and forth. Notice how, because your legs are sort of out of the action here, there's a bit of a tension in this going back position. But it's kind of cool, isn't it? And if you want to show off, you can do this bit. We do that. Anyway, like I say, the smart way to do that one is, if you want to do it, is you can also use a belt. So as you bring that belt over, you catch hold of the belt. Like that. You're balancing and doing something, because this is kind of like how we humans do this stuff. You wouldn't think it looking at me. I am a human, trust me. Also, if you have a big block, it's harder. That's what I'm. Step to the front of the mat and step back to the front of the mat and notice how that feels now. Does it feel a bit easier now just to move that block about, because you're just standing at the front of the mat all of a sudden? Yeah, even that's easier for me. Look. This is going to be a mess. Oh, no, look, wait. I can do it standing up. See, it's easier. Okay, let's do the other side. People are on Zoom like, what the hell are they doing in there? It just seems weird. What's he getting us to do? Trust me, though, this idea of moving in space when we're doing balance, because usually in yoga, we don't move. Usually they even don't like you moving in and out. I like to move in and out of poses when I'm in yoga, because it's that balance point. So right leg goes back. Start off with a block and just roll the block back and forth. Kind of feels easy now because we're getting used to it, you know. And then if you feel clever, you can do that one. Yeah, no, I still can't do it. Oh, my word. What a mess. Oh, which is the other one? That one. Oh, look, that's smart. Yeah. Yeah. It is tricky, but it's tricky, but it's sort of different, because usually in warriors, what you're focused on is sort of like in something that's abstract. I don't know, everybody's focused on different points, because you said something here, where's your focus? You'll get people saying, well, I'm focused on my feet, or my pelvic floor, or my chest, my spine. Here, you're focused on the block, which is totally abstract. Come back to the center again. Maybe put the block aside. Come back into that mountain pose, and notice what it feels like to not move. I feel like I'm still moving. It's very interesting to play with this idea of movement, when we're through yoga. We haven't played with this in Warrior 2. So let's play with the same block in Warrior 2. So set yourself Warrior 2, left toes turn out, right toes turn in. And then roll this block around the body. I mean, you can get smart and roll it under your leg if you feel like... Is that like basketball now? It's like showing off, isn't it? Yeah, like... See? Yeah, my short arms here. Yeah, look at that. You could do it from standing up almost. Like, there's me, I mean, like, combined with my kind of awful flexibility, I mean, like, really. This is kind of a good one over this bent knee, actually. That's kind of an interesting one. And then we should go up to the other side. You can do that again. You can do this awful one where you drop the block. I'm not doing that one again. I spend most of my time just looking for the block. I was getting ready to email Claire. Go, this isn't yoga. This is just messing around with a block. This isn't even yoga. Let's go this to the other side. Let's go to Warrior 2 on the other side. Let's start off with simple stuff. You're just moving from one hand to the other. Kind of dropped it just doing that. And how I move there. Long limbs make it different, make it easy, don't they? Like, yeah. Chimps actually do kind of have long arms compared to like the torso lengths. I'm just noticing how little you're having to, like, for me, like, I'm going to go all the way down. It's like really interesting. So it's funny watching. Yeah. But you know, if you ever kind of asked to do this again, you go, right, somebody says, is there somebody who can do this? You'd be like, oh, me, I'm great at this. I would. Oh, and then, stop, come back into mountain pose. Ooh. Stay. Quite a workout as well, isn't it? Yeah. The reason that your shoulders feel tight is because we've been sort of focused on doing this movement here with the shoulder blade. So the rhomboids, which are in the middle here, have been working. But also triceps have been working, the trapezius for doing this, for lifting this arm up. Even though, what's this block weigh? Like, I mean, if there was a kettlebell in the gym, you'd be like, you just like put it in the bin, wouldn't you? But like, you can get a workout with something lightweight. Kettlebell to the bin, or like, feel for kind of getting to that point of, I don't know why my legs are so wide apart. This idea of coming from movement to stillness to movement to stillness. Because it's more like real life. Ooh. Play with another balance trick. For this one, you need to stand roughly in the middle of your mat. So like, we usually stand at the front. Well, some yoga teachers have you stand at the back. I stand at this one, we're going to stand in the middle. And what you're going to do is we're just going to move one leg. So start with your left leg. Move that leg so it's kind of near the front of the mat. And then move it back to the middle. And then move it to the back of the mat. So moving middle, front, middle, back. If you like want to be advanced, I know a lot of people, there's nothing like just doing something advanced, is there? You can move it all the way from the back to the front, back, front. Notice here which way your attention is. Probably on this leg that's really not doing that much. And focus your attention on the leg that's actually holding you up for a second. So again, you feel free to come to the middle with each one if it feels a bit easier. Also slow it down. You know, I'm sort of feel like I'm doing it quite fast now. But, and then come back to the middle. Probably something weird's happening. You're probably slightly like hiked over onto one side. Come back, straighten up. Now let's do it on the other side. Plant your left leg down, right leg comes forward, middle, back, middle, forward, back, middle, no, back, middle, forwards. Or you could go forward, back, back, forward, back. And then come back to the middle. And notice your standing position now. Feel for maybe getting back into that mountain pose. So you're feeling open at the front, connected to your feet. Standing up straight, like this sounds like a complicated pose, right? But for yoga, within yoga, you find a lot of people come into yoga and they have hypermobility. And I don't tend to think of hypermobility as a thing anymore. It's all a spectrum. There's people who are hypermobile and there's people who are collagen dominant. I'm kind of like at the collagen dominant end, very much so. Some people are at the more hypermobile end. But hypermobile people are generally told a lot of stuff by well-meaning people who don't really kind of understand what it's like to be hypermobile. One of those things is always have a bend in your knee. So you see people come into yoga who are hypermobile and they come in with bends in their knees and they're continuously holding bends in their knees. And you're like, why you do that? Because people say you gotta have a bend in your knee because like I'm hypermobile. And then one day I kind of thought, what's it like for me to move around with a bend in my knee? I was like, after 5 minutes of it, I was like, God, this is hard, isn't it? Because like my whole body's not, I'm not doing that thing where my skeleton's doing the work. And so you tell people hypermobile, don't bend the knee, straighten the leg out and feel for that place where your skeleton's doing the work. Now it might be harder because the knee doesn't have that back lock point that we, collagen dominant people do, but they can still generally find that place and they find that place quite restful. The other thing that happens is because we sit a lot, we create a world so comfortable we can sit a lot, is that the hamstrings become tight and even the rest of us sort of walk a bit like this. So I like to encourage in yoga standing up straight by extending the knee and extending the hip. So that we're standing up straight, not like locking these, but just this idea of reaching the crown of the head up. So we're being straight so that the skeleton is doing the work. Notice from moving from a bent knee position to a straight locked out position. Bone stacking is another name for this because the bones are stacking on one another. That difference, what's it like to go from a more bent position to a more straight position? Just play with it, go in and out. Then look down at your feet and notice, do your feet point forward or do your knees point forward? That's generally more important than the feet, but do your knees point forward? Maybe adjust this so your knees up, so your feet are pointing forward too. As long as you can keep your knees pointing forward, that's the key. And then maybe play with it again, that kind of going in and out of bending the knees, unlocking the hips, locking the knees, locking the hips. Again, we create a world so comfortable in some ways that we spend time sitting down. We didn't, if you go back 100 years, we didn't sit down anywhere near as much as we do now. And the problem is hamstrings become tight, calf muscles become shortened. And so when we're standing up, we tend to be more in this position anyway. And then the problem is that we're putting more effort through the calf muscle, we're dumping stuff into the low back, and our heads have to go forward to hold us up in this position. And so we suffer from neck, shoulder pain, low back pain, maybe leg pain, and we spend, thousands at the doctors or physios and chiropractors and massage people trying to solve this problem, when if we did this and straightened out, we'd feel probably a lot better. So again, yoga is very good for getting into this balanced position, bone stacked position. If you're not sure about what is kind of like level here, what is distributing from my one foot to the other, what I like to do is to move my weight from one foot to the other and then sort of stop. You're generally in the kind of balanced position, because this movement of moving one leg to the other encourages us to straighten our legs out anyway. And when you stop, you're sort of in that balanced position. How much time have we got left? Not long. Let's play with some balance poses. We'll start off with and for this one, let me start off by saying chairs are great for balance. The reason being, there can be a huge difference between balancing and balancing with a very small amount of proprioceptive feedback for your body that you're not moving. So even this, just having your finger against the wall, can make all the difference. So feel free to move to a wall or have a chair nearby. I'm not going to do it because it's hilarious when I fall over, right? I mean, but absolutely, yeah, have a chair or something nearby for this. Actually, I might have a chair to demo some of this anyway. Ooh, that's warm now. I think the chairs are blocking a lot of it. They're going to be warm in here when we're doing bouncy castle later on in the party, isn't it? Yeah. First one, this is the one the yoga teachers actually love. Tree pose. I don't know, yoga teacher doesn't like teaching tree pose. I don't know why. Like, they love it. First thing to do with tree pose is to find which leg you want to start off on. So kind of walk from one side to the other. Make sure your balance is on the side that you want to have your leg on. Maybe you have the balance in front. Again, when you've shifted your weight, what happens is this heel generally comes up. For some people, this is tree pose. I mean, I saw in classes, people would kind of like go, "Oh, this is tree pose," and they'd be up here and up here straight away. It's like, how do you get into that? Oh, cool, but like, I have no clue. This is a tree pose as far as I'm concerned. For some people, bring their arms up from here, and again, spiral the arms up so you're not locking your shoulders. This is enough here. If you want to take it further, this foot comes into the ankle. With the knee, ideally, pulled out to the side, so you've got some external rotation going on this leg. If you can't do the external rotation, just work on it. Again, this is good enough for some people. Work on spiraling the arms up, spiraling the arms down. That's enough for some people. You can get a lot of extra balance from doing this, your eyes open or your eyes closed, than you can struggling to get into the full sort of manifestation of this thing. Step 3 of this foot comes up off the floor completely. So you got less contact with the ground. Avoid this temptation for the knee to come out to the front. Push down through the straight leg. Sometimes squeezing your shoulder blades together helps here. Maybe having support here. Maybe spiraling your arms up and down again if you feel sort of confident in this position. And don't look at somebody who's going like this. Full manifestation of this point is bringing the leg up onto the shin, something like this, like that, and then the arms come up. Find whichever tree pose you want to play with today. Let's do 3 arm movements. Or don't do the arm movements if you're using balance. Maybe just do one arm. And then back onto the other side. The reason I like tree pose actually is because it does one thing that a lot of yoga poses don't do. Legs, hip stability. This idea of this hip being stable in this one leg up position. Because if you think about it, even when we walk, there's that point which, what do runners call it? Zero ground contact, when we're just on one leg. There's that point where the other leg has to be stable. And so teaching it to be stable, good. Do the other side. So shift your weight, boom, boom, boom. Dump your weight into the other side. Maybe this is your tree pose. Maybe you want to play around with spiraling your arms up here. I kind of like this. Feels strong. Feels like there's stability going on. Bring that knee foot in. Boom. That's number 2. Again, with the knee out to the side. Even the tips of the toes, even though they're doing like nothing, what they're actually doing, you can think of your tips of your toes like little antennas, and they're feeling for the floor. So that as you're kind of moving, as your weight shifting from your toes, what's happening, even with your eyes closed. Step 3, you want to bring it up here and do the same thing. Wait. Isn't it hard as well when somebody goes, ooh? And it is, isn't it? And then the last one, you can bring it more up. I've lost my language this time. Oh. And let's pick whichever one you want to be at and do 3 arm movements here. It's like a workout, isn't it? I'm not going to get us to pass blocks from hand to hand as we're doing. And then stop, take a breath. Be horrified at the fact that I've just found tinsel on the floor. Ooh. Merry Christmas. There's glitter always on the floor. Like my mat is usually covered in glitter anyway. Tinsel. Ooh. Oh. Time's it. Oh, we got time for some more. Half moon. Half moon is another one of those poses that when you're taught it, you're sort of just taught, like, there's half moon and people do it. You're like, everybody else is doing it. And then you're like, how do they know how to do it? I don't know how to do it. So I worked on how do I break down half moon, much in the same way as anything else. Chairs are good for breaking down half moon. The other thing that's good is you can have a wall behind you because because a wall will let you have, because if you think about the whole, what does the whole embodiment of half moon look like? It kind of looks something like this. I'm going to do it against this here, but it kind of looks something like this. Well, the idea being that if you have a wall, your shoulders know, and this leg here knows, and your head knows what straight is. Whereas if I'm here, I'm having to work all that stuff out myself. So a wall is probably your best fan, your best help with doing, if you can get into the full version of half moon, but you're like, my balance is bad, wall is great. I'm going to show it with a chair. I'm going to show different variations. I'll let people find walls. Generally, I'm also almost like, well, everybody has a wall, but like then I look at my walls and they're like covered in stuff. These walls are also great because if you put your feet on them and there's dirty marks on them afterwards, it doesn't matter. We'll cut that out of the video just in case. I remember being in a travel lodge once I think I was doing a forearm balance against a wall in a travel lodge. And I kicked myself up and I felt the wall, like I nearly felt like I went through it. Felt like a crack. I was like, I have to be more careful. I'll be through into the next door. Right, half moon. Lots of different things with half moon. First thing is, you're sort of starting out in this warrior 2 position. So your legs are sort of in a warrior 2 position. If you're using a chair, you sort of want that chair in front of you. If you're using a wall, then you can also use a block. Blocks are your friends for like getting your arm length onto the wall, onto the floor here. So what you do is, first off, you dump your weight into this bent leg. Then you bring either your hand down on a chair That's not very scary. But like, or you bring your block onto the floor in this position. Then you start to lift this back leg up. Now this position here may be your half moon for today. This may be your half moon. If you feel like you can lift that leg up straight, then that's kind of cool. And then you can bring this other arm up here. That's kind of cool. But remember, you can do this against a wall. That's pretty cool. That's really cool. That thing there is giving your leg in the perfect position. Anybody who wants to use this wood bit doesn't come off. Perfect position. Brilliant. Brilliant. And then come back down. Ah, yeah. It's tight in the hip, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. It is quite tight on the hip as well. Stand up and let's do some hip circles for a second. Maybe also a good one to do is to lift the knee up, take the leg out to the side, bring it down. Knee up, outside, bring it down. We're working on balance again. So by setting up for half moon in all these different ways, like thinking about all these different places, everybody pretty much could do a really great half moon. But it helps them having this setup. Because if you just show people, hey, let's do this thing, and you're doing it, and you're like, well, what does it even mean? You know, it's too much. Now we're going to go and do it on the other side. Here's a little trick, little thing. You all probably picked your strongest side without thinking about it. You know what that means, don't you? Then this side's going to be a little bit trickier. I know it is for me anyway. So, warrior two on the other side. Dump your way into this leg with a bent knee. Maybe use a block, in which case the block's on the floor like this, or you have your hand on the chair like this. This could be half moon in this position. This could be half moon in this position. Or maybe you got the full half moon going. Doesn't look like I'm straight on there, but I think I am. Or you're against the wall, and you're out like this. And bring your legs down. Give them a little bit of a shake. Half moon. Way easier to do if you've got like space to do it. Trying to do this in like a yoga studio that's packed, where like the next mat is like here. You're like, I'm gonna do dominoes here if I fall over, you know. So if you've got more space, it's way more fun and it's easier. And you get to feel that idea of achievement and confidence from doing it. Oh, these heaters are really working out. So they don't have ice cream cake when they're back in here. Right. Let's start winding down with balance. Shift the weight onto one leg. Again, you get to pick which leg it is. But remember what I just said, they usually pick the easiest side first. So like, maybe you want to go, I'm going to fool him this time and pick the harder side first. And then start swinging your leg back and forth. This sort of replicates swinging the leg back and forth when we're walking. If you want to make that more complicated, you can make a circle going one way. Right, so that becomes a little bit trickier. Or maybe a circle going the other way. Again, it's stabilizing this hip, this knee, this ankle on this side. It's working a lot to do this. Go switch your leg. On the other side, maybe swing the leg back and forth. Making a circle. And the other way. And step onto both legs. Swing both legs. And then come into that mountain pose position again, because we've done a lot. I think we've been energetic. Noticing stillness again. What does stillness feel like? Does it feel like you need more effort to be still now than you did before? Does it need less effort? It's not right or wrong answers. It's just noticing. I feel like it's taking more effort because I go want to move. But being still is like to fight that temptation to move. Continuing with the theme of balance, we'll stand when we'll sit, when we'll Shavasana. Hip circles. As I keep saying, I've only ever done Tai Chi once. I don't remember pretty much anything I went to do up from there. And the guy was really good. He's like a world master, apparently. I didn't realize till afterwards. And he says if you do these hip circles like this, you go around in a circle, you do this 150 times every day, it'll change your life. Now, there was some questions I had, which I didn't ask. Do you say 150 one way, then 150 the other way? Can I do 75 one way and 75 the other way? I didn't ask these questions. But if we work on doing hip circles, it's really good because pretty much every joint in your body is working to take you through this and to support you. I always remember to go the other way. If somebody wants to take me up on this, I'm doing this 150 times a day and see if their life changes. Let me know. But again, there's a lot of balance going on here. There's joints working, there's muscles working. It's very simple, looks simple, but it really isn't, because the amount of, if you try to build a robot that could do this, it'd be incredibly difficult. I think those Boston Dynamics people build those robots that can do all sorts of things. But the last time I looked, they were like 50 million quid each. So it's like, that's a lot of, it takes a lot of tech to just do very simple things. And then coming back to stillness. Maybe mountain pose, maybe outwardly rotating the arms, the upper arms. And then let's slowly go to sitting down. Oh, yeah. Have you a block nearby? Now let's just take this block and roll it back. And roll it the other way. Keeping the chest lifted up. And keeping the upper body as center-lined as you can. Noticing what movements happen in order to make this sort of work for you. And then bring the block to the front. And put it down. And coming back again to this, what movements do you feel as you breathe in and breathe out? Do you feel your sit bones better now? Do you feel that point of balance better? Or are you like, kind of getting to that point where I'm feeling like I just want to keel over and sleep? I only had 2 coffees this morning, so yeah. Taking some deep breaths maybe in and feeling for the movements that happen with the breath and almost letting that movement happen. So we're not constricting those movements. And noticing ourselves moving in and out of balance. Let's lie down. We'll do a lying down Dragonfly Twist. Then we'll have Shavasana. Then we'll have like 5 minutes at the end where people can ask questions if they've got questions, because I'm concerned that people are going to start bursting through the door with bunting and cake, and I'm going to get distracted if that happens for sure. So, Notice if it's easier to lie down on the floor in sort of like a way that feels like you're melting more into the floor, or harder. There's no right or wrong answer here. Again, if you feel like it's a bit harder to the back of your head, you could roll the top of your mat down a little bit. Feel your feet against the floor, your hips against the floor, your ribs against the floor. And your hands, your elbows, your shoulders, the back of your head. Dragonfly twists. So for dragonfly twist, bring the left foot towards the center line, right ankle over the left thigh. Find your right foot, swing your hips over to the left. Now here you can swing your torso up to so that your rib cage is your right shoulder blade is lifting up here, or you can squiggle yourself around so that your right shoulder blade and your left shoulder blade are making contact with the floor. So you're getting a bit of a deeper twist and maybe even a bit of a chest opener on the right hand side. It's all up to you. If you feel like this rolls you all the way over onto one side, that's fine too. You can put your hands on the side ribs, take breaths into the side ribs. There's no real wrong way with this. It's really just about getting a little bit of a twist. Or if you're quite good in twists, quite happy with twists and comfortable with them, getting a bigger twist into the body to let it relax, to let it open out a little bit before Shavasana. Top leg goes over to the middle, the other leg follows suit. Straighten out your spine. Left leg over the right thigh. Find your left foot. Swing that over to the right. Come out of that, unhook that top leg, come back to the middle, and we're going to do a few breaths where if it feels okay to straighten out the legs, and we do that thing that we did earlier where we take a breath in, send that breath to the feet, push through the heels, straighten out the knees, straighten out the hips, maybe tuck the tailbone under, and then exhale, your legs and your hips relax. A few of those, if that feels okay to do in your low back. And then let's set ourselves up for Shavasana, whatever version of Shavasana is for you. Lying on the back, lying on the side, legs up the wall, legs on the chair, legs on whatever. It doesn't, you can lie in your front. Some people actually like to do Shavasana in the front. Child's pose also works. Whatever feels kind of like it's the position that feels it's going to let you relax the most for the next few minutes. And whichever position you're in, short of having, maybe have you sitting up. So if you're sitting up, I think there's more muscles at work there. But if you're doing any version of lying down Shavasana, then make it so that you're feeling like there's as little work going on in the body as possible. Shavasana. Start to deepen your breathing. Notice that gentle movement that happens within the body, even with the gentlest of breaths that you're taking while lying out. And then maybe start to slowly move. Unless you're at home and you want to carry on in Shavasana for longer, in which case just let my sound of my voice just wash over you. Ignore it. Maybe moving the fingers and the toes. The hands and the feet. Arms and the legs. Maybe slowly rolling onto one side or maybe slowly sitting up. Maybe not. Everybody looks so chilled. Even on Zoom. Oh, I'm feeling chilled actually as well. Oh. Have a good day. Have a good weekend. Have a good bank holiday weekend.